Y'all mind if I talk about Mystery Dungeon for a little bit? Okay, cool. So back in August of this year, Pokemon Red Rescue Team was released on Nintendo Switch Online. If you had like an expansion pack membership, I don't know, it's complicated. And with the release of the OG Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team game, it's become a lot more accessible for folks who have never played the games before. Both Red Rescue Team and Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team came out back in 2006. I always thought it was really cool that a Game Boy Advance version and a Nintendo DS version dropped at the exact same time. And my first Mystery Dungeon game was literally, oh my god, literally this copy of Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team. The major differences between the two games was just that Blue Rescue Team had a dual screen, making things like reading the map a little bit easier. And other than that, the only major differences between the two games, besides the consoles that they released on, were just version exclusives, as well as graphic and sound improvements on the DS version. The story and the gameplay are exactly the same, and that is what I want to talk about today. What makes these Pokemon games and the story so good and beloved among fans? Not just the story. Why is the game itself so good? Ever since Red Rescue Team was released on Nintendo Switch Online, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Specifically, I've been thinking about how it affected me as a child. And so I decided to replay the game on my Twitch channel to relive the nostalgia and experience the story again. I really wanted to unpack why this game is so special to me, and is it even really that good, or could it just be the nostalgia talking? Now, before we start, I have two very important things to say. One, look at this graph. I know that it is so silly when YouTubers do this, but whatever, it works. 62% of you are not subscribed. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing, but also you do not have to. Two, I'm going to try my best to summarize this story, but this video is not meant to just be a summary of Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue Rescue Team, but I do think that I need to summarize the story a bit in order to just, you know, make things a little bit more clear and give everybody a refresher. So I'm going to put a timer on the screen. Let's see how quickly I can summarize this story. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. You, the player, wake up as a Pokemon. You meet another Pokemon and you form a rescue team. For some reason, this world is being disturbed by a bunch of natural disasters. Who knows why? Another rescue team called Team Meanies, led by Gengar, keeps bullying you. As you rescue Pokemon for missions, you and your partner Pokemon make a bunch of friends. You also keep having dreams where a Gardevoir is trying to contact you. No idea why though. You learn about the legend of Ninetales, where a human once pissed off a Ninetales, so Ninetales tried to curse the human, but instead the human's Pokemon Gardevoir shielded the human and took the curse upon itself. Then the human abandoned Gardevoir, and Ninetales prophesizes that the human will be reborn as a Pokemon as punishment, and when that happens, the world's balance will be disturbed. So things are bad, and it's looking like you may be that human turned Pokemon. And guess who decides to tell everybody that you're that selfish human? Gengar, the man never stops. The entire town where you live runs your team out of the town and chases you, determined to kill you in order to restore balance to the world. While you and your partner Pokemon are running away, together you battle a bunch of really cool legendaries, and then you finally meet Ninetales, who informs you that you are actually not that selfish human. Don't worry about it. However, that human who has turned into a Pokemon is still alive somewhere. I wonder who it is. Oh, and also the cause of all the disasters is actually not from a human. It's from something else unknown. After you return home and tell everybody that you're not the human responsible for the world's imbalance in nature, everybody forgives you. You are then told by the all-seeing Pokemon Xatu that a meteor is heading towards the planet, and that is the cause of the imbalance in nature. Gardevoir then tells the player in another dream that the reason why you are a human is because you were destined to save this Pokemon world from the meteor. You head to Sky Tower to tell Rayquaza to destroy the meteor. Rayquaza does, and then you go through a super emotional cutscene where you, the player, leave the Pokemon world and turn back into a human, but wait, just kidding, after the credits roll, we are so back. Okay, that is my summary. So now that you are maybe refamiliarized with the story, let's get into my thoughts and my feelings and talk about the games a little bit. So when the game first starts out, the player is asked a series of questions that will determine which Pokemon you end up being. When I was a kid, I did not look up anything when it came to this quiz. I just kind of chose whatever I got and rolled with it. The family computer in the living room was literally always taken up by my sister, who was cooking up pizzas in Club Penguin, so I had no chance to use it. The dessert pizzas were not going going to make themselves. The first time I took the quiz, I got Mudkip, which is coincidentally the first starter Pokemon I ever chose. I think taking this quiz and then playing through the game as a little Mudkip really solidified Mudkip as my favorite Pokemon for the rest of my life. This may feel like a weird comparison, but it's almost as if you start the game off as a baby. You're new to this world, you're a Pokemon, and you have no history that you can remember. All you know is that you're a human waking up in a Pokemon's body. From the minute the game starts, you are forming brand new relationships and making brand new memories. I think this is a big reason why this game is so special to a lot of us, especially any of us who were lonely as kids. Relationships are a super important part of the story. The whole point of the game is that you are forming a rescue team and saving Pokemon. You form so many relationships throughout the story through rescue team missions. At the start, you save Magnemite from Thunderwave Cave, you rescue a Diglett from a Skarmory, a Jumpluff stuck in a hole, and Shiftry from Zapdos. All of these rescues are important and meaningful not only to the Pokemon but to the story as well. These acts of kindness are not forgotten later and is just a good reminder to just be kind. When Gengar riles up the town's Pokemon to chase your team off, there are a select few Pokemon who trust you and remember your kindness and help send you off in the end. I remember being so touched by these select few Pokemon because this plot point was so jarring to me. I couldn't believe we were being banished. And then later, after you get the truth from Ninetales, so many Pokemon stand up for you because of the kindness that you showed them in the past. I think a big reason why I love these relationships so much is just because of how authentic they are. For example, each Pokemon in the game has a personality that is memorable and unique, even characters that aren't really that important to the overall story. The town square where all the Pokemon gathered to shop and mingle has so much personality and chatter, making it such a cozy, feel-good spot to hang out in. And when you return to the town after being cleared by Ninetales, all of the shopkeepers and Pokemon have special dialogue letting you know that they had faith in you and are so happy you're back. Kangaskhan felt like a mother figure to me, and the Kecleon brothers felt like old friends. Side note, but I loved seeing the Kecleon shop out in the dungeons throughout my playthrough. And Kecleon is literally like Mystery Dungeon's secret boss. He will destroy you if you steal from his shop. But I never had to steal from Kecleon because I've been on top of my savings, and that's thanks to this video's sponsor, Rocket Money. If you're struggling to save up for those pesky reviver seeds or I don't know, a car, Rocket Money is here to help. Rocket Money is the personal finance app to help you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage your money better. I'm using Rocket Money to track how much I'm spending because, dude, not only have the price of reviver seeds gone up, but have you seen the price of eggs? The app helps you monitor your spending by category and get notifications when you've exceeded limits. Rocket Money has helped customers save up to $740 a year when they use all of the features, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. To save more and spend less, join the over 5 million members using Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/partyarly or use my link in the description to get started for free. You can also unlock even more features using premium. That's rocketmoney.com/partyarly to get started for free. The relationship that is easily the most meaningful and special is without a doubt the player's relationship with their partner Pokemon. You are together from the start and your partner never leaves your side. My partner as a kid was Pikachu, and since then I've always had a really soft place in my heart for Pikachu, despite being a super overrated and popular Pokemon. We're not even gonna talk about this. When the player is being bullied by Gengar and Team Meanies, your partner Pokemon is there beside you. And when you have to fight scary and huge legendary Pokemon, your partner Pokemon is battling by your side always. And even when Gengar accuses the player of being the selfish human in the Ninetales legend, your partner leaves town with you. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Throughout the journey to Ninetales, your partner expresses to you that they originally had some doubts. They thought maybe you could be the human from the legend, but there's just no way. They simply believe in you, and that is that. Growing up, I was a pretty isolated and lonely kid, like I mentioned earlier. I had a select few close friends in my neighborhood growing up, but at school, I really struggled to fit in. I kept it a secret for a really long time that I played Pokemon because it was weird for girls to play video games. But thankfully, when I got home from school, I was able to hang out with my friends inside my video games. Pikachu felt like a best friend and honestly was a best friend to me. It's cheesy, but it is true. And video games were such a great escape for me as a kid growing up in a small town, and I'm sure a ton of you can relate to that. Mystery Dungeon has so much exploration in it. There are so many dungeons to traverse and areas to uncover, and my little Nintendo DS really made my life feel bigger than the small town that I was living in. And a big reason why I was such a lonely kid was simply just because I was shy. And to this day, I am still quite the introverted and shy person. I struggle to contribute to conversations when in groups, and I get really nervous speaking to other people. I always enjoyed the silent protagonist trope that we have in Mystery Dungeon games because it just kind of makes me feel a little bit more seen. Someone who says so little is still capable of such large things. My Mudkip's ability to save Pokemon in need, form long-lasting and special relationships, and save the world made me, a softer-spoken child, feel capable of my dreams. I'd also love to just talk about how the player gets little to nothing about the history of our partner Pokemon. You have no idea where they go at the end of the day, no idea like who they were before you met. You never find out why they had this extra house for you to stay in. I'm manifesting that he's not a landlord. All we know about our new friend is their immediate acts of selflessness and faith, and that's enough to form a meaningful relationship with them. Your partner Pokemon's relationship sort of reminds me of those relationships you make as a kid with random kids on the playground, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. I once met a girl on the playground in first grade who decided to sit on the swings with me despite all the other kids that she could have played with. We talked all day, we traded rocks, and then I never saw her again. A maybe 2-hour-long interaction that I still remember fondly to this day. And it's simply just because of her random act of kindness. If we had gone to the same school, or maybe if I had returned to the park the next day, then maybe we would have become closer. But I never saw her again, and I literally don't even remember her name. But she shared something that my partner Pokemon Pikachu had, which was just the importance of kindness to strangers. Two other characters that I really enjoy are Gardevoir and Gengar. Gardevoir is a Pokemon you meet pretty early on in the game, but only as a faint dream. As the player progresses more into the story, Gardevoir will finally start to talk with you more and share that she is an agent of spirits. This is what the Ninetales cursed her to become. Gardevoir also tells us about how she doesn't hate her trainer for abandoning her. While her trainer was a terrible person, they still had some good in them. And this is incredibly selfless of Gardevoir, and it's why I think this story is so impactful. These characters are just so good and powerful with that goodness. Gardevoir continues to visit you in your dreams throughout the game and finally reveals to you near the end of the story that you became a Pokemon to save the world. She says she was looking for a hero and the search started to feel helpless until she found you. As a human, you requested to be put to the ultimate test, to have your entire memory erased and be turned into a Pokemon to decide if you were worthy of this role. This cutscene is so awesome. Finally, you're getting the clarity you needed throughout the entire game and learning that in the end, you had the courage to make it this far as a Pokemon. You also get the first clue here that your role isn't over, that once you've saved the world, you are done and you have to return to the human world. The emotions. Gardevoir tells you there's nothing that can be done about this. Once you have saved the world, you have no choice but to return. She says, and I quote, "Because there are encounters, there are also farewells." When you save the world and return back to the human world, the game tells you that if you wish very hard, you will be able to return back with your partner Pokemon. Fun fact, I've literally never not cried during this scene. It's so unbelievably emotional. And why? Because of how strong of a relationship you've made with your partner Pokemon and the other Pokemon in this world. And something I love so much about this huge long endgame cutscene is that you probably would have never made it back to the Pokemon world for the first time if it weren't for Gengar. Before we even make it to Rayquaza and the Sky Tower, we meet up with Xatu, who creates a teleport gem in order for us to get to Sky Tower. While creating it, it's mentioned that it was made with the help of Xatu, Alakazam, and a ghost type Pokemon ? Right after Rayquaza destroys the meteor, you fall into what feels like this spirit world. It's dark, it's gray, and you really can't see anything but a shadow, who ends up being Gengar. Literally the last Pokemon you'd want to see here. Gengar begins to drag your body into the dark world? Literally insane. But while Gengar is dragging you, he loses his way and says things like, "This isn't like me." He decides to just leave you where you are. And once you finally wake up back in the Pokemon world, you realize that Gengar saved both you and your partner Pokemon from the Dark World. Throughout the entire story, Gengar bullies you and causes so much trouble for your rescue team. It really feels like there's absolutely no room for remorse or forgiveness. But throughout the game's story, as you're hearing more and more about the Ninetales legend, things start to make a little bit more sense. Why is he so focused on tormenting you and your rescue team so much? Why is Gengar so adamant on placing the blame on you when it comes to the Ninetales legend? Oh, wait! Is Gengar the one who abandoned Gardevoir? The lore! Gengar is the human that abandoned Gardevoir, and it makes Gengar a really interesting character when you think back on him and every decision he's made in the game. Of course he tried to put the blame on you when he found out you were a human, and of course he tried to banish you from the town. Anything to avoid the blame of the world's imbalance and natural disasters. I love that Gengar saves the player because deep down it shows that there is maybe a little bit of goodness in him, and I really enjoy that character growth, even though I don't think Gengar would ever admit it. I love the connection between Gengar and Gardevoir, how they are both super involved in the game's story, but you don't find out how they are connected until a little later in the game. And the post-game will help summarize Gengar and Gardevoir's story a little bit more if you skipped out on that as a child like I did. Now, I'd like to wrap up by talking a little bit more about the Mystery Dungeon story and why I think it affected me so much as a child and why I think it still holds up even as an adult. As a kid, I loved games about companionship, games like Animal Crossing, where you would just befriend your town's villagers, or Nintendogs, where you raised a literal dog. I love video games that make me feel connected to characters as the player, games where you form a relationship, and the companionship throughout the story in Mystery Dungeon is really what makes this game so great. Getting banished from the town after befriending and even rescuing members of the town square was super dramatic and sad because of just the total shock and vibe change. No longer were you the brave, happy, and loyal rescue team. You were a fugitive. You could no longer be trusted, and you had to be destroyed if the world ever wanted to find peace again. Not only did the town square and all of your friends betray you, but to them, you betrayed them. It was like you were hiding the secret that you were the cause for the world's destruction and natural disasters. And I love when Pokemon games take a little bit of a darker turn with their storylines. I also enjoy that the villains in Mystery Dungeon games have actual motives that make sense, something that we haven't really been seeing with modern day Pokemon games. And I think it's why these Mystery Dungeon games are so good. Throughout the darker story turn, your relationship with your partner only grows closer, making the ending of the game that more dramatic and heartbreaking. I seriously did not see the end of the game coming as a child. I fully cried under my covers for the rest of the night because I was so distraught over losing my friend Pikachu. And then being reunited in the end after the credits was such a giant whiplash of emotions. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Blue Rescue Team was the first video game to make me cry and actually sit down and think critically about a video game story, and I am super thankful to the game for that. As I've grown up as a Pokemon fan, I've noticed a very common opinion among a lot of us, and that's just that the Mystery Dungeon games are the best spin-off games in the franchise. I've connected to so many IRL friends who don't even play Pokemon games but grew up and loved the Mystery Dungeon games. And I'm so happy other people also really connected with these games when they were younger. I decided to ask on my YouTube community page if anybody else had any fun memories or interesting thoughts on the Mystery Dungeon games because I knew I wasn't alone in my thoughts on these games. So many of you shared so many incredible memories, so many that I could relate to. A lot of you mentioned it was the first game that made you cry, a game you'd play under the covers at night when you should be sleeping. Sometimes it's funny to realize that, you know, we really never had a unique experience as kids. So was it the nostalgia talking? No. I can confidently say, especially after replaying the game on my Twitch channel, that this game still holds up and is an incredible experience if you haven't played it before. You can play original Red Rescue Team on Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack, or you could also play Mystery Dungeon DX, which is just a remake of Red and Blue Rescue Team on the Switch. Actually, I think my #1 recommendation is Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky on the DS, but those prices are kind of crazy. So now it's not like the game is perfect. It definitely has some flaws. A few that come to my mind are just like pointless flashbacks that disturb the story's flow, and sometimes the dialogue can be super bland, but the game more than makes up with it with its incredible storytelling through compassionate characters and relationships. Let this be your sign, let this video be your sign to pick up a Mystery Dungeon game. I would love for you to share in the comments some special memories or thoughts that you have have on the Mystery Dungeon games, whether it's Red or Blue Rescue Team or whatever game it is. I'll be showing a few more screenshots from my community post on the screen, but for now, I think that's it for me. I really enjoyed talking about these games, and I hope you consider picking a Mystery Dungeon game up sometime if you haven't already. Thank you for watching.